For 400 years, against us. And today, I'm breaking down 4 types of black betrayal that keep us shackled. Level 1. The house slave. Meet Steven, the house slave who loves his chains so much, he'll kill to keep them on. This ain't just a movie character, y'all. This is the blueprint. Most toxic black person in America.
That's who the hell you calling Snowball, horse boy? I'll snatch your black off that nag down here in the mud so fast make your head.
Steven.
See, Steven don't just serve white people. He is a white racist in black skin. He's so deep in Stockholm Syndrome that he fears freedom more than bondage. Why? Because oppression is all he's ever known, and he's convinced himself that his survival depends on keeping happy. In Django Unchained, Steven isn't just a servant, he's the enforcer. When Broomhilda tries to escape, who punishes her? Steven. When Django arrives as a free man, who's most threatened? Steven. This man has so internalized his oppression that he sees other black people's freedom as a personal attack on his identity. Sound familiar? That's Uncle Ruckus, the cartoon version of what's very real in our community. These are the black folks who will police you for being too black, who mock our culture to get white folks to pat them on the head and say, "You're one of the good ones." But this isn't just comedy, people. This is psychological warfare. The house slave mentality runs so deep that these individuals will literally work against their own people's interests to maintain their position in the white power structure. White racists have weaponized our own people.
Never joke, never joke, never joke. Oh, money never, money never, money never, money. Now know what you conniving, money. Money never, money never, money. You can keep your conniving, money. When you been a corrupt in a biz there be money. Now because your money done, you come with conniving money. When you had your pocket full, in a biz there be money. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me money. Yes, money never, money never, money never, money. Now know what you conniving money. Neighbor joker, neighbor joker, neighbor joker. That's all the money that me walk. A 2 pound note and a guild up this. A 2 pound note and a guild up this. A 2 pound note and a guild up this. This is all the money. Money never, money never, money. Now I know what you can have in money. Oh, Joseph. to serve my country. Guyana, beautiful, happy and free. Guyana, let's cooperate with our government to help develop Guyana the free. Together, my comrades, we are a new Guyana, a country where all have one opportunity. Let us begin now to show loyalty to Guyana by showing love and respect for all Guyanese. My brothers, my sisters, we will live and die here together. On to one people, one nation, one destiny. For harmonious living, cooperation will be forever. In work and play as we live as strong Guyanese. Guyana, I want to serve my country. Guyana, beautiful, happy and free. Guyana, let's cooperate with our government to help develop Guyana the free. Well, it's time we said all the rich lands in the interior. Our natural resources are there in great quantity. And we will do farming and establish those money border. We'll grow more food so we could fill all Guyanese. My greatest desire is to serve my country, Guyana, and sincerely help Guyana to move along. Our government asks us that we study hard and we learn the things that will help Guyana to become strong. Guyana, I want to serve my country. Guyana, beautiful, happy and free. Guyana, let's cooperate with our government to help develop Guyana the free. To help develop Guyana.
All right, so you might be wondering where we are. Still in Buxton at Club Twilight. That's where we are. So Club Twilight also has like an Airbnb as well. So you could come, drink, come in the back here and lie down. Look at that. Look at that. Perfection. And the people come in the room and so on. The bed sheet matching, the blind matching, the carpet matching, the this matching, the that. We know but we things in Buxton don't play with we. So definitely if you want to come and you may be having a wedding or whatever and you just want to overnight and just have a good time because you're going to be drunk, we got too much road accidents, so you definitely want to come drink, have a good time. They have several rooms that you can rent. You have your toilet, you have your bath, you have your sink, you have your dining area, you have the bed. This is nice. I like it. Anyways, to my friends and my family, also for those persons who are traveling in from overseas, you want a nice cozy place out of town, then Club Twilight, call them up, look them up on social media. They have their own Facebook page, and ensure that you come up the side and have a good time. Have a good time. Have a good time. I'm sorry. That's it.
Are you hosting an event? Do you need ice parties in large or small quantities? Then call us at 622-5933 for the best party ice available. $1,000 per bag. We do delivery. EC Crystals, Sideline Dam, Buxton North. Call to have your orders filled today.
All right, so today we are here at Club Twilight up in Buxton, and we are here to talk about all that's going on up here. Are on the East Coast, you're in Buxton, you're in town, you're looking for a place to get away to, this is the place. The Cutters, mwah. Listen, I'll be having some just now again. We'll talk about that. And then of course the ambience is beautiful, fully air conditioned, the decor is on point, the music's on point, everything's on point. that belongs to this club here is on point. So if you want to find a nice little place where you can just drive out of town and have some drinks, have some food, you can call, you can order your stuff and just take it. You don't have to stay. Or if you want to stay here, that's what's up. And of course, they have special events for Valentine's. You can rent a hall. You could rent a hall, honey. You could rent a hall for weddings, for birthday parties, to have a bash. I hope he edits that out. But you know, whatever it is, this is definitely the place to be. So it's on Sideline Dam. You definitely want to ensure that you check this place out. But it's on your to-do list. All right, on your to-do list. This is definitely the place to check out. You know, a really cool, chill spot here in Buxton. I like this. Buxton needed this. We needed this. I needed this. You definitely needed too. Thank you.
You can get meat anywhere, but for the best cuts of chicken, beef, pork, mutton, and lots more, check out T&W Harris Butcher Shop, located in the East Rheinveld Market Meat section. Call us on 609-7168, 641-4494. Ask for Rastaman. T&W Harris Butcher Shop, for the best in fresh cut meats and lots more.
Planning a party? Worry no more. We have all the supplies you need. At EC Party Rentals, we have folding chairs, folding tables, square tables, round tables, long tables, short tables, big tables. We have chairs, red chairs, gold chairs, white chairs, crystal chairs, chairs of all type, throne chairs. What you want, we have. Food warmers, coolers, ice, beverages. At EC Party Rentals, we have what you need to have a good time. You plan the party, we do the work. Call us 622-5933. EC Party Rentals. Let's keep your party going.
For 400 years, white racists have weaponized our own people against us. And today, I'm breaking down the 4 types of black betrayal that keep us shackled. Level 1, the house slave. Meet Steven, the house slave who loves his chains so much, he'll kill to keep them on. This ain't just a movie character, y'all. This is the blueprint for the most toxic black person in America.
That's who the hell you calling Snowball, hoss boy? I'll snatch your black off that nag down here in the mud so fast make your head.
Steven.
See, Steven don't just serve white people. He is a white racist in black skin. He's so deep in Stockholm Syndrome that he fears freedom more than bondage. Why? Because oppression is all he's ever known, and he's convinced himself that his survival depends on keeping happy. In Django Unchained, Steven isn't just a servant, he's the enforcer. When Broomhilda tries to escape, who punishes her? Steven. When Django arrives as a free man, who's most threatened? Steven. This man has so internalized his oppression that he sees other black people's freedom as a personal attack on his identity. Sound familiar? That's Uncle Ruckus, the cartoon version of what's very real in our community. These are the black folks who will police you for being too black, who mock our culture to get white folks to pat them on the head and say, "You're one of the good ones." But this isn't just comedy, people. This is psychological warfare. The house slave mentality runs so deep that these individuals will literally work against their own people's interests to maintain their position in the white power structure. Herschel Walker literally said, "Black families don't need fathers because we had strong women." This man was so desperate for white Republican approval that he threw his own people under the bus on national television. He painted black fathers as dispensable while running for Senate in Georgia, the same state where his own father abandoned him. But here's where it gets really sick. Walker wasn't just talking to white Republicans. He was talking to black mothers, telling them they should be grateful to struggle alone. He was telling black children that they don't deserve fathers. Also, he could get a pat on the head from people who will never truly accept him. The house slave doesn't just hurt us through their actions. They poison our minds with self-hatred. They teach our children that being black is something to overcome, not something to celebrate. They turn our survival mechanisms into weapons against ourselves. Here's what makes the house slaves so dangerous. They convince white people that racism isn't the problem. We are. They give oppressors permission to keep oppressing because, see, even they agree with us. Remember, Stephen wasn't just loyal to Calvin Candy. He was more racist than his master. When the house exploded at the end of Django, it wasn't just a building burning down. It was the destruction of an entire system that depended on black people policing other black people. And that's why this mentality is the foundation of all the other levels. Every other type of black betrayal starts with this basic premise, that white approval is more valuable than black liberation.
Before we get to the next level, if you're learning something from this breakdown, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for Black Stories Untold.
We're out here telling the stories they don't want you to hear, exposing the systems they don't want you to understand. Your support keeps us free to speak these truths. Level 2, the assimilationist celebrity. I'm not black, I'm OJ. These people perfected the art of racial amnesia. They got so comfortable in white spaces that they forgot where they came from. Or worse, they remember, but they're ashamed of it. The assimilationist celebrity plays a different game than the house slave. They don't attack us directly, they just disappear us. They code switch so hard, they develop split personalities. Around white folks? Oh, I don't really see color. But the moment they need us for damage control, suddenly they remember they're black. Tiger Woods literally created a whole new racial category, Cablinasian, to avoid being called black. This man was so uncomfortable with his African heritage that he invented a word to escape it. But when his career imploded and he needed redemption, suddenly black people were supposed to support him because we're family. O.J. Simpson spent decades distancing himself from the black community. He lived in white neighborhoods, dated white women, and famously said, "I'm not black, I'm OJ." But when he was on trial for homicide, who did his lawyers appeal to? Black jurors who remembered how white America had treated black men in the justice system. Remember when Michael Jordan said, "Republicans buy sneakers too," when asked to support Harvey Gantt, a black Democrat running against Jesse Helms, one of the most racist senators in modern history? That's the assimilationist playbook. Stay profitable, stay safe, stay silent. These celebrities think they can buy their way out of blackness. They move to the whitest neighborhoods, send their kids to the whitest schools, marry white spouses, and raise children who don't know they're black until the world reminds them. And when racism smacks them in the face, and it always does, they're shocked. But here's the real damage. They sell our young people a lie. They make kids believe that if you just work hard enough, speak white enough, dress right enough, you can escape racism. They teach our children that being authentically black is a limitation, not a source of power. Think about how many young black athletes and entertainers have followed this blueprint. They sanitize their image, avoid controversial topics like police brutality or systemic racism, and present themselves as safe for white consumption. They become brands, not people, products, not advocates.
The assimilationist celebrity is dangerous because they don't just betray us, they make betrayal look aspirational. They turn sellout behavior into success goals. They teach our children that the price of admission to white spaces is the abandonment of black identity. And when the next generation of black celebrities follows their lead, staying silent while their people suffer, who do you think they're modeling themselves after? The cycle continues. And our voices get quieter and quieter in the spaces where they need to be loudest. But here's where it gets even more dangerous. What happens when these sellouts don't just stay silent, but actively become the mouthpiece for our oppression? Level 3, the puppet politician. Systemic racism doesn't exist in America. This is Candace Owens. This is Clarence Thomas. This is Tim Scott, telling us America isn't a racist country. These are the most dangerous black people in America today. Why? Because they don't just abandon us, they lead the charge against us. They become the black face of white racism, giving oppressive policies a chocolate coating so they go down easier. Clarence Thomas sits on the highest court in the land and systematically dismantles every protection our ancestors died for. Affirmative action? Gone. Voting rights? Gutted. Civil rights protections? Weakened. And he does it with a smile, knowing damn well he wouldn't be where he is without the very programs he's destroying. Let's be real about Thomas for a minute.
This man was accused of physical harassment by Anita Hill, a black woman who put her career on the line to tell the truth. And how did he respond? He called it a high-tech lynching, using the language of black oppression to defend himself while throwing a black woman under the bus. Then, he spent the next 30 years on the court, making sure other black people couldn't access the opportunities that got him there. Thomas's wife, Jenny, was actively working to overturn the 2020 election results, and Thomas refused to recuse himself from cases involving January 6th. This man has so little regard for justice that he'll corrupt the highest court in the land to serve white political interests. But Thomas operates in the shadows. Candace Owens? She's out here making anti-blackness into a full-time career. Owens tours college campuses telling young white kids that racism is over, that black people are just making excuses, that slavery was actually beneficial because it brought Africans to America. She's turned hatred of her own people into a brand, a multimedia empire, a whole damn industry. She literally said that if he had just stayed in Germany, he would have been fine, because she was so desperate to own the libs that she lost her damn mind. But here's the thing, that wasn't a mistake. That's who she is. Someone so consumed with anti-black ideology that she'll defend him to make a point against black progress.
And look at these audiences when she speaks. You see the joy on these white faces? They finally found black people who will say what they've always wanted to say. See? They said it, not us. We're not racist. We're just agreeing with the black lady. But if you want to see the ultimate puppet show, let's talk about Kanye West. This man went from George Bush doesn't care about black people to walking around in White Lives Matter shirts with Candace Owens like some kind of minstrel show. Kanye had the audacity to say that 400 years of slavery sounds like a choice. This man really sat on TMZ and told the world that our ancestors chose to be kidnapped from Africa, chose to be chained in slave ships, chose to be beaten, assaulted, and systematically subdued for 4 centuries. You know what that was? That was Kanye telling white people exactly what they wanted to hear. That slavery wasn't that bad. That black people are responsible for their own oppression. That racism is just a mindset we can choose to overcome. And when he got called out for it, what did he do? Doubled down. Started hanging out with Candace Owens, wearing MAGA hats, meeting with Trump in the Oval Office, grinning like a damn fool while the president used him as a prop. Then this man had the nerve to go full anti-Semite, talking about going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people. You see what happened? He went so far down the white elite rabbit hole that he started parroting their conspiracy theories. And suddenly, all those white Republicans who were using him as their token black friend dropped him like a hot potato. But here's what really pisses me off about Kanye. He had everything: platform, influence, money, respect. He could have used his voice to speak truth to power. Instead, he used it to give white racists exactly what they wanted. A black man saying that black oppression is our own fault. Kanye represents the puppet politician at its most pathetic. Someone so desperate for white acceptance that they'll say anything, believe anything, do anything to get that approval. And when the approval runs out, they're left with nothing but the damage they've done to their own people. Tim Scott ran for president on the platform that America is not a racist country, while living in a country where black people are killed by police at 3 times the rate of white people. This man said welfare was worse for black people than slavery. He compared government assistance to the kidnapping and death of millions of African people. But here's what makes the puppet politicians so insidious. They don't just speak to white people, they speak to confused black people too. They tell working class black folks that their struggles are their own fault. They tell black women that feminism is their enemy. They tell black men that white racism is actually black people's fault. This is the puppet politician's function, to be the ventriloquist dummy for white racism. They don't just harm us through silence, like the assimilationist. They actively recruit others to harm us. They give white America moral permission to continue oppressing us while convincing some of us that oppression is actually freedom. The puppet politician is the most dangerous because they have power, platform, and purpose. They're not confused like the assimilationist or broken like the house slave. They're strategic. They know exactly what they're doing, and they're getting paid well to do it. But here's the thing that really gets me.
Sometimes the most dangerous betrayal comes from people who genuinely think they're helping us. Level 4. The Tragic Compromiser. Meet Booker T. Washington, the man who told black people to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, while white folks were cutting the straps. Now, before y'all come for me in the comments, I get it. Booker T lived in a different time. Jim Crow was in full swing. Lynching was a weekend hobby for white folks, and this man was trying to keep us alive. But when he gave that Atlanta Compromise speech in 1895, telling black people to focus on vocational training instead of demanding civil rights, he gave white racists exactly what they wanted: our permission to wait. Cast down your bucket where you are, he said. Accept segregation. Focus on economic development, not political rights. Prove you deserve equality instead of demanding what's already yours. Sound familiar? That's respectability politics, and it's still killing us today. Washington believed that if black people just worked hard enough, were respectable enough, contributed enough to the economy, white people would eventually accept us as equals. He was wrong, dead wrong. All his compromising did was give white racists moral cover to continue oppressing us while pointing to his words as proof that even we agreed with their system. While Washington was teaching black people to be patient, white folks were lynching us at record rates. While he was promoting vocational training, they were burning down Black Wall Street. While he was preaching accommodation, they were passing laws to strip us of the vote. His strategy of appeasement didn't stop the terror. It enabled it. But here's what makes this tragic. Washington genuinely loved black people. He built Tuskegee Institute, educated thousands of our people, and fought for economic advancement. His intentions were pure, but good intentions paved with black bodies still lead to hell. Today's respectable compromisers follow the same playbook. They tell us to vote our way out of oppression, to work within systems designed to destroy us, to be twice as good for half as much. They preach the politics of respectability while our people are killed in broad daylight. You know them, the leaders who say we need to build bridges with people who want to build walls around us. The preachers who tell us to turn the other cheek while bullets are flying. They mean well, but good intentions don't stop police bullets. They mean well, but patience doesn't pay rent. They mean well, but respectability doesn't resurrect the dead. Here's what makes this the most tragic level. These people genuinely love us. They're not seeking white approval like the others. They're trying to protect us, but their fear makes them accept crumbs and call it progress. They tell us to wait for the right time, the right candidate, the right moment. Meanwhile, we're dying in the streets, in prisons, in poverty. How long are we supposed to wait for freedom? How long are we supposed to prove we deserve what's already ours? The respectable compromiser isn't evil. They're just scared. Scared of white backlash. Scared of losing what little progress we've made. Scared that if we push too hard, too fast, white people will take everything away. But here's what they don't understand. White people never gave us anything out of kindness. Every right we have, we fought for. Every law that protects us, we bled for. Every step forward, we took by force, not by asking nicely. The compromiser believes in the myth of gradual progress, the lie that justice delayed is not justice denied. They think racism will fade away if we just give it enough time, enough patience, enough good behavior. But racism isn't a misunderstanding, it's a system. And systems don't reform themselves out of the goodness of their hearts. They change when they're forced to change. Here's what connects all four levels. They all serve the same master. Whether it's through active betrayal, silent complicity, political puppetry, or respectability politics, they all keep white racism alive. The house slave convinces white folks they're good masters. The assimilationist convinces us we can escape. The puppet politician gives racism a black face, and the respectable compromiser tells us to be patient with our own oppression. But here's what they don't want you to know. Every single one of these archetypes exists because white racism needs them. They're not aberrations, they're features of the system. The house slave provides psychological cover. See, even they like being enslaved. The assimilationist provides false hope. If you just try hard enough, you can make it too. The puppet politician provides political cover. It's not racism when a black person says it. And the compromiser provides moral cover. Even their own leaders say they should wait. Together, these four types create a complete ecosystem of black subjugation. They handle different aspects of the psychological, political, and social work needed to maintain white dominance. But here's the real tragedy. Many of these people could have been freedom fighters. The House intelligence could have been used to organize resistance. The assimilationist platform could have been used to advocate for justice. The puppet politicians' power could have been used to advance our interests. The compromisers' love could have been channeled into revolutionary action. Instead, white racism captured their talents and turned them against us. That's the real genius of this system. It doesn't just oppress us with external force, it recruits us to oppress ourselves. So the next time you see a black person tap dancing for white approval, ask yourself, which level are they on? Because until we recognize these patterns, until we call out these sellouts, until we stop making excuses for people who harm us in the name of helping us, we'll never be free. Drop a comment and tell me, which type do you think is the most dangerous? Which ones have you encountered in your own life? And most importantly, what are we going to do about it? Because our liberation depends on it. And liberation doesn't come from compromise, assimilation, or puppet shows. It comes from the courage to name our enemies, even when they look like us. The revolution starts when we stop accepting betrayal as strategy, when we stop calling sellouts leaders, when we stop waiting for permission to be free. The question is, are you ready to stop waiting?
Morning, neighbor, morning. Welcome to another program of Guyanese Morning Time. It is 7 hours 37 on the 23rd day of October in the year 2025. I am your host, Kidaki Amsterdam. How you been? How was it yesterday? How was it last night? How you wake up feeling this morning? How closer are you to achieving those goals that you've set? I see what Mus Roberts is saying that he's been listening to one John Prasad on some show, and the man is doing good. He doesn't mix words, and he's asking my thoughts on him. My question is, who is John Prasad? Because I don't know who is John Prasad. Means I've never heard a minute of what John Prasad has to say or has been saying. So maybe Westmus, you can send me a link to John Prasad, and I certainly will listen. As knowledge is power, and if I listen, then I can form an opinion. But until such time, I don't know who is John. I don't know who is John. I don't know what John is talking about. Good. That's my honest response to you. Good. Well, I tell you, there were some people in box yesterday talking about my little escapade into addressing the double speak ideas here for Christian community. But you know, some going to cuss me, some going to praise me, some going to say it's truth, some going to say I know what I'm talking about. But at the end of the day, no harm intended. I hope no religion was hurt. What I hope is that people pay attention and decide, well, Amsterdam, no, he's saying, let me go and do some research. Right? Let me go and do some research. I said, I don't know anything he's talking about. Well, anyhow, it's Mr. Jordan's morning, and so I wouldn't stand too long between Mr. Jordan and all those of us who are tuned in. And so let me hit up the gentleman and call him up. And for those of you who are wondering, I want you to pay keen attention to the fact that when Mr. Jordan comes here in the mornings, he's teaching, he's educating, he has given many of us information that we never had, outlooks that we never had, ideas perhaps that we never had. Good? And so I'm very happy for the likes of former Minister of Finance Vincent Jordan, who take time
to come to this program daily, weekly, at great sacrifice to educate us. Like I always say, pay attention to the message, not the messenger. I might like me, but guess what? I've created a platform that can help us and is helping us. Yeah, I might like Mr. Jordan, I know. But he is providing, I see, a service that could help us and will help us if we only pay keen attention. Knowledge is power. Okay, good. I see the fight is continuing over at GCOM. And Anel Nandlal has suddenly woken up and taking the position where this is an opposition battle. And they're going to work it out. Let them work it out, because at the end of the day, if it goes to court, I will be named as a respondent and I will have to give my 2 bit about it. And so I'm going to wait until then to comment. It's a GCOM matter. And GCOM is autonomous. That word GCOM is autonomous. I was telling you all about autonomy yesterday in GCOM. And Anil has woken up. I know how long he woke, but he woke up and he said GCOM is autonomous. But prior to the elections, I didn't see Anil respecting the autonomy of GCOM. Yeah, I could be the judge to that. But like I said, I'm going to call Mr. Jordan. I didn't leave too long to talk too much. I give the gentleman his time. The gent. Some people say the use of the word gent is vulgar. Mr. Jordan, good morning.
Good morning to you, Kadaki. How are you this morning?
Welcome to the program. How are you doing?
I'm good, thankful Thursday as usual. Bearing up with the weather, so to speak.
Nice weather, man.
Nice weather. Actually, was listening to the weather forecast. It says in Georgetown and these areas here on the coast, we can expect a high of 34 degrees. That's a lot of heat. That's a lot of heat. Just when I thought on Tuesday that the rains, the December, January rains were here, I learned that it was the result of a storm in the area. And so we will be back to the heat for a little while more, And spare thought for our brothers and sisters in the hinterland. Today, they're supposed to be expecting 36 degrees in the shade.
What is storm name? What's the name of the storm?
I haven't kept pace with the names this year, but it was a storm, and they said that it's likely to develop into Category 1 hurricane by the end of this week.
I think it's Melissa, Mr. Jordan.
Melissa? Oh, Lord. You're giving bad name now to all them Melissas. I know a couple of them well.
I think it's Melissa. When I heard the name Melissa, oh God, another Melissa. It would appear as though all them Melissa, like Melly Mellon, so
Oh, poor Melissa. But thankful Thursday, man. Glad to be in the land of the living, as I said many days.
Good morning, Melissa Atwell. Big up yourself. Continue the struggle.
Yes, a lot of people didn't make it. But for those who have made it, we should give thanks and praise. And that, notwithstanding your foray into what people may think to be an untouchable subject, which is this whole issue about religion and particularly Christianity, I say we need more of those kinds of discussions. And it's pains sometimes when people don't feel that an alternative view is a view that is worthwhile in the whole process of discussions. People whip you if you have an alternative view on religion. It's I think it's a kind of static understanding of the world. If people didn't have inquiring minds, we wouldn't have been here today. We wouldn't have made the advances that we have made. And so we must have inquiring minds, even in religion. even in religion, we must have those inquiring minds. And those who are faithists and believers and so on, they must be able to come back to some of the searching questions that are asked where that is concerned. But leave that for another day. But in the expectations that that discussion can be more open and be done without the fear that it is done whenever it is done, or the looking back whenever it is done. I am thankful for what you might have said on our programs today. I meet people every day, and every time they say, Mr. Jordan, I listen to your program. Mr. Jordan, I look forward to your program, and so on. And those are the people who keep me going on this program. I don't read comments on Facebook or so on as it relates to this program or any other such things. If I were affected by negative comments, I would not be doing this program. I would not have been a minister of finance. I would not have implemented the policies while there, get the cabinet to agree to some of the revolutionary policies that I agree with. I would have just kept the status quo. But I always tell people, they will tell you at Ministry of Finance. My thing is, I didn't enter a beauty contest. So I don't have to be nice. What I have to do is make certain that the vast majority of the people benefit from whatever the government is doing.
But Mr. Jordan, they're jumping there on your policies and so on. You recognize that the PPP opening planting chip factory. I want you to comment on that as you proceed. I think I'll be immediate, but must let me talk a little bit about the planting chip factory.
No, but Kadaki, it's only gullible people that look like us, gullible people that look like us, who condemn such entrepreneurial activities. Gullible people. And there are so many of us. That is why I love that video that you played. I was listening to that video at 3 o'clock this morning. And my skin grew when I listened to it. And I shake my head. Only gullible people that look like us. When Barnum was talking about rice flour and working with different people to perfect the technology, they listen to the PPP and the condemnation of rice flour as if we grew up with wheat flour. When the slaves made do with what you call slave foods and were able to perfect the art and the culinary art of the slave foods that white people took and turned them into gems. I tell you, I remember going to do my master's degree in 1983, first time in England. I walked into a Sainsbury's store and saw black pudding being sold, slave food. But we turn our nose and we thumb our nose if black people made black pudding back in the day. But white people were selling it in Sainsbury's. And they were buying it. Plantain chip, everybody who go to Burbies know that they were a set of Indian guys in particular and 2 Indian women just by that bridge or before the bridge even went the boat. They were all arrayed there selling plantain chips and cassava chip with sour, a delicacy among the poor in Guyana. And they built houses. They built houses selling plantain chip. And when rice flour, as I said to you, the PPP came and knocked rice flour. But when Robert Prasad was agriculture minister, they talked about buying and putting a rice mill in Essequibo. I don't know what happened to it. Don't know what happened to it. And today you hear them talking about cassava flour. somebody to come here. I think it's Milk or one of them to come here to set up factory for cassava flour. And we allow a little island like progressive island like Barbados to run with the idea that what Barnum was running with since the 70s, and able to blend wheat flour with all kinds of different flour, rice flour, cassava flour, and so on. And the bread, as I said many times in this program, the bread, as soon as it hit the shelves in Barbados, gone like hotcakes. Gone. But we allow ourselves here to be battered and bruised, gullible as we are, while people making money offer us. Gullible and bruised. They laugh at David Hines, but David Hines was absolutely correct. You leave the black pudding lady who's selling in Buxton to go to other places to buy the same black pudding that can be made like the lady in Buxton. And they are building fantastic houses while they're denigrating you. Man, that thing, look, it will take up this whole program again and many more programs. It will. But there's nothing like plantain chip. My wife attended a funeral last week, or all this week, at the last week, in Borbees, and brought back some plantain chips that was sent to me by some listeners to this program with sour. What a delicacy. What a delicacy. And the PPP that masters at the art of fooling people are now coming back. Not through the back door, front door with their plantain chip factory. Who's owning the plantain chip factory? And who will be buying the plantain chips? You know how much money is spent in plantain chips? We used to give him plantain chip, and they've been getting this plantain out of Costa Rica or one of these places. You got all this land in this country. British Guyana was known for the BG plantain, full up a pot. And you're telling me that all you could do is ship out plantain, and you can't add value to that plantain? Yes, so as I said, it will take plenty programs. So I don't really want to be taken off of my, already short time with many different topics that we should be exploring. But yes, when I read it also, I shake my head and I grieve at the gullibility of especially people like us, who like to join other people to denigrate our leaders, but are willing to stretch their hand out for another handout so that they could use it to go and buy at the others, enriching the others, increasing generational wealth in the others, while all you are left with is to increase generational poverty. But it's a long exercise of retraining and re-educating and so on. I would love to see the day when UG in the Faculty of Technology and Science and all these different places will have more entrants than the Faculty of Social Science and Arts and so on. It's not that these aren't important areas. It's not that they aren't necessary and that they aren't agreed. But they don't have enough scientists, enough engineers, enough technologists, and everything else. And those are the areas, as you know, that are in great demand. Kudos to all the lawyers who graduated Every year is a new batch of lawyers. One hopes that they are making it income-wise. But how good it will be if every year we can see a consistent batch of scientists who go on to their PhDs and so on and into research to make this place a better place, this world a better place. And I would love to see the day when the science faculties and technology faculties and so on outpace the social sciences and the arts at university again. Too many of us going into disciplines that we follow with heart and not with head. And when we graduate, after the graduation and we take out the pictures and so on, we realize that there's no work for you. There's no work for you. Even in law. I know many lawyers who kick and break, who still to pay back for the amount of money that their mothers or whoever took loans from the bank and so on to think them. They kick and break. Many of them have not even seen a courtroom beyond the day when they were accepted. Haven't seen a courtroom. So again, that has to do with career guidance and so on. There's nothing wrong in doing law. You can do a first degree in law and you could perhaps do a second degree in some other thing and a third degree in some other thing. But ultimately, whatever you do, you must be able to make society better at the same time while you're making yourself better. I see my good friend Joe Armon's daughter has been accepted to practice law in Guyana. Congrats to him and his daughter. But you know, today's Thursday, Kodaki, and I was going to, I know you're the cook man, and was going to ask you if you're making any cook up today. Kodaki? No cook up? All right, man. I'm not going to ask you because I was wondering whether you were going to be putting cashew in it because that's a no-no for me. Even our cultural foods are being corrupted by this administration. The most important ingredient in cook-up is cashew. Can you believe it? I've never ate a cashew cook-up. And I hope not to. But Christmas is around the corner, and I'm hoping to eat pepper pot, for which the main ingredient is cashew. And if you could get the original cashew rather than the bun sugar that someone sell, then your
let me
go ahead. Kiraki?
Yeah, let me respond to you on that that cook-up business. No, I'm not doing cook-up today, and when I do cook-up, my cook-up doesn't ever have cashew. Yes, I don't ever do cashew cook-up. But you see, I was explaining in my discourses yesterday, you have to understand people's culture and their cultural preferences and so on, right? So the people who say cashew is a main ingredient in cook-up might know what they're saying. Some people cook a cook-up with a dash of peas and enough color. When I cook a cook-up, I cook a cook-up with enough peas to give the food color. So there's a difference. Okay, sir?
But Kadaki, I have never in all of my 68 years heard about cashew being put in cook-up. And worse,
you there, Mr. Jordan?
And worse, Kadaki, that cashew is the main ingredient in cook-up. Never. Never. And you know what is interesting? The individual had several opportunities since then to correct himself, but he has not done so. In fact, in that video, there there is people in the background saying, yes, yes, cash whip is the thing in cook up. Were these people really serious? And two of them look like indigenous people saying that. Are they serious? I really genuinely have to believe that he meant pepper pot. But until he says that, I have to say what he said, which is cash whip is the main ingredient in cook up, which is a corrupted form of our foods, our cultural foods. Even our foods are going to be corrupted.
You know, I try not to sit in front of this computer when you're on Thursdays, Mr. Jordan, because I don't like to interrupt your thoughts. But the person who's talking about cashew being the main ingredient, maybe it's out of ignorance, number one. But then all the people in the background saying yes, yes, maybe it's because this society has become a set of yes people. Right? A set of yes people. And again, I'm saying to you, you have to pay attention to people's cultural practices. Right? Some people believe boiling little rice maybe with coconut and dashing a little color inside is cook up. Right? So, who knows? You can't beat him off his ignorance or his custom. You have to respect people's custom.
Anyway, as I said, Christmas is around the corner, and I'm going. All right, and I'm going to look forward to a good pepper pot made with rich cash whip coming out from the indigenous community, and not some of the bun sugar that are sold in bottles in some of the supermarkets here in Georgetown. I'm hoping to call upon a friend to bring me a bottle of rich pepper pot out of one of the Amerindian communities, so that my pepper pot on Christmas morning could smell and taste like pepper pot. And cash whip is the main ingredient in the pepper pot. All right, so everybody has had their say on this GCOM matter, and I would like to have my say on.
Mr. Jordan, I promise not to interrupt you, but let me say this. You have expressed a little bias there about where you're getting your cash whip from. Buxton and Victoria and Golden Grove are Afro-Guyanese communities that are known for very high quality cash whip. I can tell you that. I have in my kitchen a few bottles of cash whip that was made by a woman from Buxton here. And I can tell you, really, really good quality cash whip. So you ain't gotta go out of town to get good cash whip, you know. You just gotta do your research. Again, enjoy the rest of the Thursday and your presentations. I'm listening in though.
Kodaki, I am prepared to buy a bottle from our African brothers and sisters. If you have a bottle, I can pay you for it. I was just going to the originators of it that I do every year, but I was unaware that our African brothers and sisters also make a quality product, and I'm prepared to support African products. So yes, I am prepared to buy a bottle and try it even before Christmas, certain that to make certain that what you said, I also can say that the product is as good, if not better than the initiators of it. All right. So bring me a bottle, or tell me where in Buxton I can go to get a bottle. All right. Yeah. So I was saying that everybody has had their say on this GCOM thing, and I want to have my say also. In Kaito News, as you read yesterday, I think it was, Kaito News, October 24th, 2025, under the headline, GCOM deadlocked chair awaits Ajudin's pick to fill opposition seats. And in that article, it was reported that GCOM is paralyzed in a bitter deadlock as Chairwoman Justice retired Claudette Singh refuses to convene meetings, insisting that the commission cannot function until a new leader of the opposition is appointed and submits 3 nominees under Article 161 3B of the Constitution. She also went on to state that any business of the commission will have to be conducted after convening of Parliament. Of course, all of this country tongues was as a result of opposition commissioners, in particular Vincent Alexander, urging the chairman to do what the laws says. That is, that the declarations that should be made, under the existing law, that is, declaration in result of the elections of the recent general and regional elections, to be presented by the chairman or to be done by the chairman, and GCOM chairman also to present the results of the regional elections to the commission as the law provides at sections 96 and 99 of the Representation of the People Act. All because of that. And in according to a letter to the editor in yesterday's Kaitor News by Vincent Alexander, under the headline, GCOM in the context of real politics in Guyana is not fit for purpose and shall be restructured, Alexander claims that the goodly honorable retired justice is ducking from performing her statutory functions, and that, as he claimed, she would like to see the back of him because of his strident and consistent advocacy in calling her out for not performing her statutory functions and claiming that she is not competent. I'd like to, in relation to the first article in Kaitor News, I'd like to make certain comments. The first thing is that the Justice, Honorable Justice retired Singh, seems to conclude that GCOM's existence is concurrent with Parliament, based on the fact that she says she's waiting for the reconvening of Parliament to restart GCOM's business. I can find nowhere in the Constitution, rope or anything that says GCOM's life is aligned with Parliament, with Parliament's life. No article in the Constitution, and she could come back and answer that. No article in the Constitution says that the life of GCOM ends with the dissolution or proroguing of Parliament. Nor does the business of GCOM depends on convening of a new Parliament. Does not. And this is the first time I'm hearing this. First time I'm hearing this. Second comment I would like to make is the composition of GCOM. Now, the existing prior to the existing composition, and we'll comment this, the 1980 Constitution had a three-person GCOM. One person picked by the president, by the president, one person picked by the opposition leader, and the chairman who was picked by the president. So it's 2-to-1 really. but 3 persons. And as we well know, 1992 had the Carter Price formula that changed all of that into a 3-3-1, where 3 persons were picked by the leader of the opposition, 3 persons picked by the president, and a chairman or chairperson who was picked by the president from a list of 6 persons not unacceptable to the president that had been presented to him by the leader of the opposition. And we'll come back to that. So if this is the case, and that formula was meant to be a transient formula, and it was put in at a time when they had great turmoil in the country and so on. It was not meant to be a prominent formula, but in the event, it has remained so, and it has been enshrined in the amendments that were made in 2000, in the 2000 Constitution. Amendments to the Constitution. We'll come back to that also. However, since Justice Singh is claiming that these commissioners here are no longer have efficacy because there is a new opposition or there's an intended new opposition leader, and that it's the right of the new opposition leader to pick his 3, and therefore the commission is not correct. Justice Singh, in pointing, should recognize the 4 fingers that are pointing back at her, because at Article 161(2) of the Constitution, it says, quote, "The chairperson of the Elections Commission shall be appointed by the president from a list of 6 persons submitted by the leader of the opposition after meaningful consultation with the non-governmental parties represented in the National Assembly." That is what 161(2) says. Justice Singh's name was extracted from a list that was presented to then President Granger by the then leader of the opposition, Bharat Jagdeo. When the elections were held in 2020 and the coalition government lost and became the opposition, why didn't Justice Singh resign just before the parliament convened? Because now you had a new opposition leader and a new president. A new opposition leader and a new president. And based on her own reasoning, it means then that the business of GCOM should have come to an end, waited for the convening of parliament, which happened on September the 4th, 2020, before the business could reconvene. And at that time, the new opposition leader should have been able to present a list of 6 persons to the new president for a new chairperson. In fact, according to Justice Singh, the entire commission, life of the commission, comes to an end with the parliament, but that is not so. That is absolutely not so. It was so, as I recall, and not the whole commission, but it was a case that after 1992, successive chairpersons, the life of successive chairperson came to an end with the conclusion of the elections. And think about it. Collins, after Collins did the 1992 elections, He went. For the 1990, and there was no chairperson of the commission until one was picked to conduct the 1994 local government elections. And that person was Hopkinson, a minor. When the local government elections were finished, Hopkinson went. But the 6 commissioners remained. When the 1997 elections, general and regional elections, were to be held, Dudnat Singh was picked from the list of 6 that was presented to the then president. And that was another story because they didn't expect Dudnat Singh to be picked by Cherry Dagon. But eventually was picked. Oh boy. When, as you remember, Dudnat Singh conducted the controversial 1997 elections, and those were over, he went. He went. For the 2001 elections, it was Joe Singh. It was Joe Singh who was picked. When those elections were over, he went. And Suraj Bali was picked. But Suraj Bali now was picked in the context of the amendments that were made in 2000. So Suraj Bali conducted more than one elections. And that Suraj Bali only went after he retired or resigned. So he went on his own steam. Meanwhile, different opposition leaders came and went. But the commission remained the same. The only difference was the changing of the guard at the head of the GCOM. That was the only point. But now, the Honorable Justice is claiming that unlike the commissioners as she claimed, her position is for life. This is unbelievable reasoning. Unbelievable. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say that. But it can be inferred that the intent of the 2000 amendments was to make the GCOM was to put it on a more prominent footing. Because as I showed you before, the instability that was taking place after every elections, you had a changing of the guard at the top, instability. And while the changing of the guard was taking place, there was an interregnum where there was no chairman, and therefore little to no business taking place at GCOM. So to instill greatest instability, it was that commission, in terms of its prominence, the members of the GCOM were more or less made prominent, including the chair. Thus, the chair doesn't resign anymore at the conclusion of our elections, as had happened prior to 2000. Because according to her current reasoning that she's waiting on a new law to come into effect. And meanwhile, while you're waiting, the 3 opposition commissioners don't have standing, and therefore the commission is not quoted. Why didn't Justice Singh invoked the same reasoning after the government fell in 2020 and became the opposition. After all, the people who Justice Singh came and met in 2018 or 2019, when 2019 most likely when she went to GCOM, were there for a long time, particularly the opposition members. And with the exception of Desmond Trotman, who replaced Sandra Jones, who died. Sandra Jones replaced Robert Williams in 2012 when he died. And she died, I think, somewhere around 2017 or thereabout. But she died while the coalition was in power. So the replacement of her on the Elections Commission was Desmond Trotman. And he was appointed there by the same Granger. Only this time, Granger was the president. You see, Granger appointed Sandra Jones in 2012 when he was the opposition leader. And when she died in 2017 or thereabouts, he now, as president, appointed Desmond Trotman. But at no time, as I recall, did President Granger appointed Desmond Trotman, Vincent Alexander, and Corbyn as the president's men on the commission. At no time. Meanwhile, when the coalition was in power, the commissioners who then became opposition, who were government before and then became opposition by the PPP, at no time was a letter sent or something sort saying these are our opposition MPs. Nothing such. There's nothing in the Constitution that says that. There's nothing in the Constitution that says every time a Lou or a president is appointed, they have to either refresh the nominees for commissioners or appoint new members to the commission. There's nothing. Because if what Miss Justice Singh is invoking now is fact, then all the decisions taken by previous commissions are invalid. So after 2020, you had a new leader of the opposition in Harmon. And as far as I know, Harmon, Justice Singh didn't write to Harmon saying or whatever to get new nominees or to refresh the nominees that were there as commissioners. When Harmon resigned and Norton came, Justice Singh then asked Aubrey Norton to refresh or send in new nominees for commissioners. So where is this thing about waiting on Azudin or whoever to become leader and then he nominating? Where is that? And invoking the article in the Constitution that says the Lou got to nominate. You can't conveniently invoke that article. And everybody knows that all three of the opposition commissioners have served for various elections some of them in both capacities. The longest serving one, Alexander, he has served both as an opposition commissioner and a government commissioner. Implied and expressed. Because when he was appointed by the leader of the opposition. And he remained there, he said, over 18 years, which means he served during the coalition time when Granger was president. In which case, he would have been effectively serving as a nominee of the president. Because now the government is in power. And as I said, Desmond Trotman was picked as a nominee of the president to replace Sandra Jones. But from president nominees, he then became opposition nominee. You see, if you don't accept these arguments, then the GCOM would lack validity, would lack legality in all the decisions that they made. If we follow this thing that justice, this road that Justice Singh is going on, if we go down that road, then we see we can run ourselves into huge problems. And Nandalal, as you said, pull himself out. Because he in addition to the fact that he knows that he will be named, that this matter will definitely go to court. The arguments that Justice Singh making as a layman don't make sense. And invoking that particular article at this time will put the whole GCOM into trouble. Whole GCOM into trouble. And as I said, there's no article in the Constitution that says every time you have an election and there's a new president and a new opposition leader that they have to refresh the commissioners or name new commissioners. No article in there. And let's go back to the headline of this article because it is so misleading. The headline says, the chair awaits Azuddin's pick to fill opposition's seats. Now this makes assumption that no judge should be making in the circumstances. None. It makes the assumption that Azuddin has been named as Lou, as leader of the opposition, when we know that that has not happened. Now, while his party, WIN, has the most seats in the opposition, and therefore the leader of opposition is likely to come from WIN, it is presumptuous to assume that that person will be Azuddin, especially given the cloud that is hanging like a halo over the head of Azuddin. So to say that, for the Honorable Justice to say that she's awaiting Azuddin's picks to fill opposition seats that are not vacant, by the way. Seats that are not vacant, by the way, because it can be a pronouncement of the chairman of the person that the seats are vacant. That's not how it happened. And we will come to vacancy just now. So one doesn't know what will be the outcome of the elections when the parliament convenes. One doesn't know what will be the outcome of the elections. And as I said, I am not going down the road anyhow of whoever is the leader of the opposition new leader of the opposition has any right, inherent right, to pick 3 new commissioners. Like I said, that thing is going to end up in court because you can't remove commissioners unless certain occurrences happen. And we'll just go through them just now. Now, this second comment on this headline is that it assumes that a leader of the opposition does not exist currently. This is a false narrative. False. One that I have shown a couple of weeks ago, that a leader of the opposition exists as of now. And let me restate again. Let me restate rather than again. Let me restate Article 184(2)(a). The office of the leader of the opposition shall become vacant if A, the holder thereof ceases to be a member of the assembly for any cause other than a dissolution of parliament. As of the dissolution of parliament, there was a leader of the opposition in place in the name of Aubrey Norton. Hence, Aubrey Norton remains the leader of the opposition, continues to perform the functions as leader of the opposition, and is still being paid by the National Assembly. He's still being accorded the rights and privileges of the leader of the opposition. And this will take place until a new leader of the opposition is elected by the new parliament. As was seen recently, he was engaging with the CCJ president, both in his capacity as leader of the opposition, because the CCJ president went to see the president, and he went to see the leader of the opposition. The leader of the opposition remains in place until a new leader is elected. So, that being the case, Aubrey has reaffirmed his faith in and confidence in the 3 people who have been nominated by the leader of the opposition. So what is Honorable Justice Singh talking about? Those 3 commissioners have not lost faith of the leader of the opposition. And the work to be done by the GCOM cannot be affected as such, because a leader of the opposition is in place. His nominees are in place. Those nominees have been appointed by a president. GCOM is quorate. It's alive, it's functioning, and the chief chairman must get on with the business of GCOM. A leader of the opposition is in place. And Justice Singh says she knows the Constitution. I will come to that just now too. And she must know that there is a leader in the opposition. There are nominees of this leader of the opposition. Those nominees have not been recalled by the leader of the opposition. So what is Justice Singh talking about? What is she waiting for? I must agree with Vincent Alexander that the Article 161(3)(b) must be read in conjunction with Articles 225 and 226. And these articles refer to the life of the commissioners. In particular, Article 226(1) states, quote, save as otherwise provided in this Constitution, in the exercise of its functions under this Constitution, a commission shall not be subject to the directions or control of any other person or authority. And Article 225(2) states, quote, the officer, means a commissioner or any other of any commission, including GCOM, the officer may be removed from office only for inability to discharge functions of his or her office, whether arising from infirmity of body or mind or any other cause whatsoever, or for misbehavior. Okay? And of course, the officer can remove himself through resignation. So the circumstances are, officers can be removed for inability to perform functions, whether arising from infirmity of body or mind, and officer can be removed from misbehavior. Okay, so that's 2. And the other 2 will be, well, not removed, but office will become vacant on death and resignation. In the circumstances of the 3 commissioners who have been nominated by the leader of the opposition, none of these 4 instances has occurred. None. None has occurred. And any attempt by Azudin to say that, or whoever, to say that they're nominating people to sit on the commission will clearly result in legal action. And he will be well advised to tread carefully. He or whoever else will be well advised to tread carefully, lest the commission is brought into disrepute and the work of the commission comes to an end and remains in flux while you're having critical local government elections to follow less than a year next year. And then, of course, there's this other comment attributed to Honorable Justice Claudette Singh. She says, quote, I don't know where they got that from, which I think was a reference that they are permanent and they're there for life. That is what I think it was our reference, that the argument is that the commissioners are there for life. An argument that I accept, that until you put into the Constitution, amend the Constitution to talk about service in terms of time and so on, the impression is going to be that they're there for life, just like how Justice Singh claims that she is there for life. In other words, her tenure has no limit, because the Constitution indeed and no law says what is the limit of the chairperson. Indeed, the Constitution also doesn't give the limit of the thing, notwithstanding the fact that 3 commissioners will be picked by leader of the opposition. It doesn't, the Constitution is silent as to when these 3 will be picked. If at the start of the thing, if every time a new leader or a new president comes into being and so on. All those matters are gray. They are gray matters. And the fact that with time, as it has evolved, where, for example, Alexander has been there for 18 years, served through different elections, different presidents, different leaders of the opposition, and none of them has written a letter to the president or to GCOM indicating anything to do with refreshing the commissioners or intention of pulling commissioners and putting new names, I can see a big fight coming up. But anyhow, back to what she says. She says, I don't know where they got that from, because when you read Article 161 3B, I don't believe you get that. So they need to say where they get that from. End of quote. She added that she is very aware of what the Constitution states in regard to this subject. Quote, I know about this Constitution. I was in the Attorney General's chambers and I worked with Dr. Mohammed Shahabuddin with that Constitution. So I'm fully aware of it. End of quote. Well, let me see. I don't know what the Honorable Justice is talking about here. I think she's confusing certain things, or her utterances are subject to various interpretation. Let me say, I know Justice Singh. Again, as I said, I know her. Justice Singh was in the AG's chambers in the 80s. That much I can vouch for, because she was the go-to person when I was in the Ministry of Finance, and I was transferred to the Ministry of Finance in 1985 from state planning to the Ministry of Finance in 85. And when I went there, Justice Singh was the go-to person. She wasn't a justice yet. She was working in the AG's chambers. She was the go-to person when we wanted legal opinions for loans that we took from multilateral agencies. She was the go-to person. And we could have relied on her to give those opinions in a timely manner. That much I will give her. And indeed, around that time also, I believe Mohammed Shahabuddin in the 80s, around 85, 86, 87, he was indeed in the Attorney General's chambers. She talks about, she says she knows about this Constitution. She was there, and she worked with Dr. Mohammed Shahabuddin with that Constitution. I could only assume that she's talking about the 1980 Constitution. And I'm assuming that she, being an officer in the AG's chambers, she worked with Shahabuddin on that Constitution. She's right in recalling that. But how do you conflate working on the 1980 Constitution with Mohammed Shahabuddin with the present situation where you have a character formula that was introduced in 1992 and more or less put into the Constitution in the amendments of 2000? How do you conflate that with working with Shahabuddin on that Constitution? That meaning 1980 Constitution. 1980 Constitution had, for GCOM, 3 people. One from the leader of the opposition, one from the governing party, one from the opposition party, and one nominated by the president. And everybody remembers the lifelong tenure, perhaps, of Justice Harold Bollers. He was head of that GCOM for a long time. Elections come, elections go, he was still the head of GCOM because he was always nominated by the Prime Minister / President. And I don't recall who were the who were in the commission at that time, who was the government nominee, who was the opposition's nominee. But 3 is the character price formula of 1992 that changed it to 6 + 1. So clearly, Justice Singh could not have worked on that Constitution with Justice Mohammed Shahabuddin, Attorney General. What is worse, just Mohammed Shahabuddin, Dr. Mohammed Shahabuddin, who was then Attorney General, Minister of Legal Affairs, left Guyana to take up an appointment as a judge on the International Court of Justice, widely known as the World Court, in 1988. And he served until 1997. He served from 1988 to 1997. He was nowhere around when the Carter Price formula was being discussed. Nor being implemented. So I don't know whether Justice Singh might have had a senior moment in saying that she worked with Mohammed Shahabuddin on that constitution, implying that she's aware of the intent of the framers of the 6 commissioners and so on. In fact, by that time, in 1992, Justice Singh would have been a justice of the court, whether the High Court or the Appeal Court. She could not have worked where this formula was concerned. As you know, in 1997, she gave that famous decision vitiating the 1997 elections. I think in 1990, was it 97, not 97, 98, was it 98 or 99, when she gave that famous decision vitiating the elections. So Justice Singh was not anywhere near any AG's chambers in 1992 working on that constitution in relation to Price Carter formula that enshrined the 6 commissioners and the picking of a chairperson based on a list to be submitted by the opposition. It must have been a senior moment. And as we know, the Carter Price formula of 3-3-1, 3 opposition, 3 president, and 1 from a list of 6 from the president, from the opposition leader, to be picked by the president. That formula was never, as I said, was never intended to last forever. It was born out of strife and a way of attenuating some of the strife that took place in 1992. Elections were postponed, as you remembered, from 1990, again postponed in 1991, and then held in 1992. And there were all kinds of problems to do with the elections and staffing and the structure and all these kinds of things. And out of that came that formula. And out of that came Collins, Rudy Collins, who was picked by Jagan from the list that was presented to him, who was picked by Hart from the list presented to him by Jagan. But after the experiences of the 1994 local government election, the 97 general elections, the 2001 general elections, the Carter Center in this 2001 report said, quote, as part of the electoral reforms, Guyana should give careful consideration to alternative models, including possibly eliminating political party representation. And I see VPAC has run out. Well, I see VPAC has run out with a proposed bill that they have drafted to give effect to these this Carter recommendation. And straight out of the Carter playbook, their proposed amendments include scrapping the existing arrangements at GCOM and putting in place some 10-member committee that will have 2 representatives, 2 nominees from opposition and president, and a whole set of other people involved. They claim from civil society and private sector and trade unions and UG and the chancellor and all kinds of stories. All I would say is be careful what you wish for, because you get half a dozen of one and 60 the other. You jump out to the frying pan into the fire. The problem in Guyana, as we all know, is that we have no confidence in the institutions because we feel the institutions are corrupted, biased, or influenced by the executive. So things that work in other areas, things that work in society that have very strong civic, very strong private sectors and so on, can work in Guyana. The institutions that we have set up for oversight, institutions that we set up with autonomous charters and laws, turn out to be nothing more than either rubber stamps of the executive or influenced heavily by the executive. So when you're asking for all these fancy names and you think these are going to be independent and so on, it will not have the confidence. And that is why politicians are not going to give up something which they think they have control for something where at least one of them will have no control. You think the opposition with now 2 members out of 10 is going to feel safer than the present configuration? Because all the other members that you're talking about coming from, well, except the other 2 that he's recommending to come from to be nominated by the president, all the other 2 are coming from the so-called civil society. Be careful what you wish for. They have decent people in Guyana. They have people who will, once nominated, can serve the interests of the nation and the organization. The question is whether the wider society has the confidence in them. And very often, if they don't look like we get suspicious. And if they look like we, but they're making decisions that we don't feel comfortable with, we said to get by over. And it's not only us who think like this. This is the concern in this society. Last week, I saw what is purported to be a cabinet decision on licensing of firearms in Guyana. I think it's the licensing board. And in a multi-ethnic society, on a multi-ethnic society, all the members of this licensing board are of one ethnicity. And you expect the rest of the society to have confidence in the board and its operations. But why you think that happened? Why you think that happened? In the last incarnation of this government, the 2020 to 2025, they had a board of guardians in Region 10. These are the people who recommend some level of assistance and so on. Region 10, a predominantly African Guyanese region. The government, which can be characterized to be an Indian-dominated government, put in a board of guardians that was exclusively one race to determine matters for a predominantly other race in another region. That is why you think that wasn't done deliberately? Eh? And this board is more than 10 people, I think. And in 10 people, you cannot find an African Guyanese, a Portuguese Guyanese, a Chinese Guyanese, an Amerindian Guyanese, a mixed Guyanese. It had to be all of one race that determining the welfare of a predominantly other race than this race. That is why in this country, institutions are looked at suspiciously. So, Mr. VPAC, I congratulate you on walking the walk, because a lot of talkers we got in this country, a lot of talkers, but VPAC has gone ahead and put into the public domain a draft bill amending the Constitution. Now, it may not get anywhere because this government ain't got no intention of looking at any bills that ain't come from them, that didn't originate from them. But he has done what I have always said. Put it there, put it in the public domain, it become a talking point. Somebody has made a start. Somebody has made a start. Congratulations to VPAC. But I can tell you, 6 of one, half a dozen the other. I personally don't see the suggestions, which obviously you took from the Carter model. I don't see them happening. I see a Manzo Waldon from our FGM has talking about the Jamaican model. Again, as I said, while models can be studied to see how they can be adapted, let's not talk about this wholesale implantation. Guyana is a very divisive society. And while we study all those models, we must come to something that will be peculiarly Guyanese. The Jamaican one worked, but you must study the environment within which it worked. And you will find out that the environment is a different environment to that of Guyana. And by the way, in the last elections, the same model in Jamaica is coming for licks, because the Jamaican Elections Commission is being accused of all kinds of things. And the elections, the last elections, held a couple days after us, having issues with the smell test. But we can't indict the commission on the strength of that. Nothing has been proven, and so on. But all I'm saying is be careful of all these models that we're trying to put out there in thinking that they will solve a protracted problem that we got. Because the 3-3 model worked reasonably well when Suresh Bali was the chairman. It worked reasonably well when Suresh Bali was the chairman. But of all the commissions that we've had, the Justice Singh's commission is the only commission where her presence in terms of her voting to break so-called deadlocks was enormous. Suresh Bali broke one deadlock and he served longer than Justice Singh. One deadlock. Because he moved and moved and moved and moved to consensus. And every day, not every day you wake up, you're going to get a Justice Singh. A Justice Singh, a Sush Bali type commission. So you have to be, and you can't set institutions on the basis of personality. That's why they will not last. They will not have longevity. You have to set them beyond personalities, that they can survive whatever person you put there. I don't particularly like, as I said, the charter model, which VPAC has put in their bill, because it doesn't take account of the society. Everybody talks about, oh, bringing civil society. Who is civil society in Guyana? Who is civil society in Guyana? Who are the members of the organizations? What is their pedigree? So we got a lot to do. Meanwhile, there are mere 9 more days, 10 more days, within which the parliament must be convened. If you didn't think so before, it is becoming obvious that parliament is not being convened because the executive is hoping for a certain situation to occur. And it seems increasingly that that situation is unlikely to occur before the deadline meets. The goodly Attorney General, in defense of the government not convening parliament, claims that it's a process. What process? What process? What process? Article 69 is clear indeed. 4 months from the date of the last dissolution. That will put it at November the 2nd. 10 days from now. You got an executive that has been functioning without a parliament, without the oversight of parliament, without the need for laws. Meanwhile, people are saying, well, how them new ministries are functioning? I myself ask the same question. How are those new ministries functioning? Because they cannot function without a supplementary provision passed by the National Assembly. They can't function by contingency fund. They cannot function by use of contingency fund votes. They have to have a supplementary provision for expenditure for those ministries, gazetted. They first have to be gazetted. Then you have to put them on a paper and seek supplementary. So if they are being paid and expenses are being met for these agencies, under what law are these new ministries being met? I passed Main Street the other day and saw a big sign going up. Ministry of, was it Public Utilities and Aviation. Main Street, near to where the Chess Association used to be. Now, what is wrong with these people? In Main Street, you continue to put ministries in Main Street. Main Street. You can't find another place to put this ministry. A place right there in the Public Works. Or some other place. But in Main Street, oh man, it's time ministries move out of Main Street. And Main Street be handed over to the tourism sector. And you put in ministries in the few buildings, historic buildings that we have in that historic street. But there you have it. Ministry of Public Utilities and Aviation in Main Street. My question is, where are they getting money from? Because I see that building is being refurbished. Where they getting? Who are the permanent secretary of that ministry? How is he being paid? From which vote? Who are the staff? How are they being paid? From which vote? Because there's no vote. There's no voted provision for any of the new ministries. None. And on what grounds is the Ministry of Public Service Government Efficiency Implementation? They can't use the old vote because that ministry no longer exists. Now, they may be able to transfer the balances to the new ministry. But that's separate to what will happen in, say, the Public Utilities Ministry and any other of the other ministries that they created. But all this comes into flux because you have no parliament. Of course, as I said, everybody believes that they're delaying parliament because they're hoping a certain action will take place in relation to Ashuddin Mohammed. And as time goes by and the action is not coming forth, what will you do? The Constitution doesn't provide for a postponing of the convening of Parliament. That's why they give you a 4-month outside date. So it will have to be convened by November the 2nd because it says within 4 months. Exactly 4 months will give us November the 3rd. Within 4 months, the outside date will be November the 2nd. Ashuddin is already claiming that the government is trying to buy 3 WIN members to prevent him from becoming the leader of the opposition. He claims he knows this, and he claims that the government has been unsuccessful so far because there are no Charandases in WIN. Mr. Mohammed, Ashuddin Mohammed, you better be careful. You don't know about human behavior, human frailties, and so on. And you're going to learn. Don't vouch for any person when it comes to these matters, especially in politics. And if you do vouch, you do so at your own peril. There's nothing stopping 3 persons, right, once the price is right, from not voting for you. I went through this before, and I'll go through it quickly again. Article 184.1 says, the leader of the opposition shall be elected by and from among the non-governmental members of the National Assembly at a meeting held under the chairmanship of the Speaker of the National Assembly, who shall not have the right to vote. End of quote. Okay? So we know there are 29 members of the opposition. 16, 12, 1. Good? 16 in favor of WIN, 12 APNU, 1 FGM. Right? No. Once those 29 people are subscribed to the oath in Parliament, they are now members of Parliament. The Speaker then calls all 29 at a meeting, and you go for the election of the leader of the opposition. Now, Article 184.4 says, the election and removal from office of the leader of the opposition shall be by a show of hands. So there's no secret ballot here. There's no RDC Region 4 here or RDC Region 10 here of secret ballot. It's in the Constitution that it has to be by a show of hands. So if as William claims that the PPP is trying to buy out 3, then it will have to be a substantial sum of money to be paid because they can't hide under secret ballot because they have to show a show of hands. So to the effect will come a high price for whoever's paying. Now, let us assume that 3 people indeed take the mullah, the molasses, or whatever, and the price is right. They have to know that they will be the most short-lived members of parliament. They will be the most short-lived members of parliament because when their defection occurs at the meeting and they vote for somebody else, or they don't vote at all, or they don't vote at all because they suddenly develop diarrhea and all 3 of them had to go to the loo at the same time. No pun intended. Because these things happen. Because it is show of hands, they may not want to be out and out. But the speaker can call a meeting. And when that meeting is called to order, you find out that WIN only has 13 members present. Three are missing. They develop diarrhea. They're incommunicado, you can't find them, or any such thing. It happened before, Mr. Azmuddin Mohammed. Don't feel that you know your people. Politics is a nasty game. And when the mullah is right, loyalty goes through the window. So you get 3 members defect, and defect in the sense that A, they're present, but they voted against you, or B, they're not present at the time when the voting takes place. It's just like a defection because it means then that you would have lost the leader of the opposition position. But only temporarily, Mr. Ashidin, because when the new leader of the opposition comes in, you can do several things. One, the 3 who weren't present or who didn't vote or who voted against you, you can utilize the recall legislation and expel those 3 members. Okay? Let us recall the recall legislation was introduced by Bill number 17 of 2007, Constitution Amendment Bill 2007, and it was inserted as Article 156A1, quote, where the representative of a list from which a member of the National Assembly was extracted indicates in writing to the Speaker that the list has lost the confidence in that member. The representative of the list shall give a written notice of recall of the member to the Speaker and forward a copy of the notice to the member concerned. And Article 156A2 says, quote, upon receipt of a notice of recall under paragraph 1, the Speaker shall declare the seat of the member in the National Assembly vacant, and the vacant seat may be filled in the manner provided in law. So you got the recall legislation, recall those three, throw them out. Throw them out. And you bring in a new tree. A new tree. So you're back to your 16. And then you could activate Article 1843. 1843, which says, quote, when 1/3 of the non-governmental members of the Assembly represent to the Speaker that the leader of the opposition no longer enjoys their confidence, the Speaker shall call a meeting of all the non-governmental members at which it shall be decided whether the leader of the opposition shall be removed from office. The removal shall be effected by the votes of a majority of all the non-governmental members. So you have your thing. The big question here, though, is when will the Speaker call that meeting? When will the Speaker call that meeting? That is the problem you will have. So while you have the Constitution in your favor, the issue now is left to the Speaker. When will he call that meeting for you to have a revote? So uneasy lies the head of the crown that wears the crown. It is not conclusive that you will be the opposition, the leader of the opposition. It is not conclusive. It's not even conclusive that a member of your team will be leader of the opposition. It is not conclusive until everything is on the dotted line, the elections has taken place, and you're actually in there. And as I said, even when you're in there, as leader of the opposition, still 1/3 of the members, and 1/3 of 29 is 10. And the APNU got that 10. They can represent to the Speaker that they lost faith in you. And the Speaker will have to call that meeting. And once you have 3 people or thereabouts, you will have to have 4, because if it ends up 13-13, then it doesn't pass. The motion doesn't pass. You'll have, if 4 people suddenly absent themselves and you get voted down, then you're out. So that is some interesting developments that can take place. And we have 10 more days for this parliament and to witness it. Now, in the little time that is left, I can't start back my foreign currency story. Some people have been looking forward to this, but as I said, as I indicated then, when other items come up that are more pressing, then we have to deal with them. And the next quick one I will deal with is this gas to shore, gas to energy. And the reason why I'm going to deal with it quickly, because a lot of people have dealt with it. I've seen in today's papers the usual suspect with a letter to the editor in Kaichor News. But I tell you, I hope never to be in a position, that kind of position. But anyway. So you had the chairman of Linseco, the contractors that on this project. The chairman of Linseco, Nelson Drake, revealing that a staggering US $100 was spent to stabilize soil at the Wales gas to energy project site. And this, as a result, set back the project by 14 months. 14 months. Recall that this project should have been finished in 2013, then 2014, then 2015. Now you're here in 2016, and who knows, 2017? Who knows? You keep going. 20, this project was finished 2023, then 2024, then 2025, now 2026, and who knows, 2027. And we may very well be kept going, right? And recall that Exxon efficient as they are, when they efficient as they are, have concluded the pipeline well in advance of this project. I think this pipeline was concluded, was it finished in 2023 or 2024? But it's there. Might have been 2024. It is there. The pipeline is filled with nitrogen. Any asset, as you know, begins to waste from the time it's completed. And particularly the ones in water, as this pipeline is, perhaps even more than the ones on land. What is worse, that you start paying back for this pipeline. A pipeline that right now is of little use to you because you're not using it. So there you have this project, 14 months setback, while we're spending $100 million trying to stabilize soil at a site that was never considered suitable for this project. The APNU left 5 studies that were done. They like to say how APNU full of studies. But that is part of the accountability framework so that you don't waste taxpayers' money. 5 studies that we left, and none of those studies pointed to Wales as a site, a suitable site. In fact, the site that was the best site, both from a standpoint of the government and Exxon, most cost-effective and cost-efficient site, was closer to Mexico. Was closer to Mexico. And again, as I said, if we continue in a country where we want to tear down things because it wasn't done by us. Imagine a country that don't have resources. We got governments who are willing to tear down because it wasn't done by us. Right? The bridge study, that wasn't done by us. So let me fetch it up the road a little more. So them guys can't say how it's their own. We can fetch it a little more. We can cost more and everything else, but we don't care. This is what has happened here. And what is worse, before that project could even start, they never did any geological study, geotechnical study, nothing. What is even worse, the government had the experience, previous experience of citing the GPL station at Freedom Hoop and the tremendous problems that they had with soil and trying to put down those generators down there. They had the experience of the soil on that part of the river. They had all of that, and they still went ahead and wasted $100 million. You got this one writing in today's papers talking about this money well spent. $100 million US dollars. You got hungry people in this country. You got poverty at 52% in the fastest growing country in the one Guyana. And they like to enumerate all these things they have done since they come into power. They remove this tax, that tax, they give you cash grant, and all of that Humpty Dumpty can't put the economy together. Rising cost of living, inflation, rising poverty. By the way, apart of these measures, these people like to say how they give out 50,000 house lots. I mean, how does that relate to poverty, house lot and poverty? How does it relate? If they said 50,000 houses, I could understand. But 50,000 house lot is part of the anti-poverty measures. But anyway, that's an aside. So we We were being told all kinds of fancy gymnastics as to why this project can't finish. At one time you hear it's the arbitration, which still going on, by the way. It's still going on, by the way. The arbitration has moved to another level. We don't even know what was the result of the first round, but we could infer that the government must have lost the first round results and now going out for round 2, hoping for appeal. We don't know. We are treated in this country, our citizens in this country are treated as little children to be fed information only enough for your living. It's like food. Only enough for your living. Not for you to gorge or to sit down and digest and so on. That's what we do. That's what happened here. On this project, there has been a total blackout of information, notwithstanding numerous promises in none other than in the parliament by none other than the Prime Minister about information. We don't even get a drip of information on this. But whenever we inform, put it out there, they are quick to holler, no, it's not so. Who's paying for the pipeline? What is the cost of the pipeline? You ask Exxon, well, we are still doing the calculation and it's not blah, 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 blah. You ask government, what is the cost of the pipeline? Well, we did this. How can you start a project without even having an estimate of how much it will cost? The pipeline has been lying there for almost a year, if not more. And you're telling me the public cannot be made aware how much this pipeline has cost, number one. 2, how much is you paying to maintain the pipeline? Because you need people to go there to make certain that nothing is breaking, the nitrogen, whatever it is. The pipeline has to be maintained. Who's maintaining this pipeline? How much is it costing us? How much is Exxon taking out of our money for this pipeline? Nothing. Blackout. No information on this project. But every now and then, they're showing you but pouring concrete at 3 a.m. in the morning. As if that is supposed to excite us. And whatever we want to know about this project and Exxon and all these things, we have to read it in overseas newspapers. Because in those countries, Freedom of Information Act is taken seriously. And companies like Exxon and so on have to report to various institutions, the stock market, this place, that place, tax revenue office, all that they have to submit their true and correct information. And it's there where we get our information here. That's where we get our information. And we don't learn anything because one of the reasons why that airport had extensive cost overruns, forcing us to abandon the original intent, was because by the time we came in, 70-something% of the money had already been spent, and less than 20% of the work was accomplished. Why? Without doing the geotechnical surveys and so on, they started the airport at an end to find out that the soil was not unlike what they found on the West Bank. They poured sand there till all the sand disappeared. They spent millions of US dollars in sand, pouring sand at the wrong end, only to abandon it to go then to the next end. You know how much these things are costing us in terms of taxpayers' money? But we're not learning. We're not learning. And what is the one constant? Put it in the comments. What is the one constant about all of these high price, overpriced, or failed projects? Put it in there. Put it in the comment section. What is the one constant that's running through all of these failed projects or price overrun projects or so on? Put it there. So we have to learn at the International Business Conference by this man named Nelson Drake that we had to fork out $100 million because of liquefaction that took place at this site. And what is this liquefaction story that they're talking about? It means that the soil is very weak and is unsuitable for heavy construction, for a heavy project of a gas-based nature. And as I said, the weakness of the soil was well absorbed in the construction of the GPL station at Breeden Hoop, where it suffered significant cost overruns in foundation works, right? So we are paying heavily. We are paying heavily. And what scared me when I read this thing and what I want to bring it up this morning, this man, Nelson Drake, in his terrifying words, said, quote, "The equipment that we're putting on this site is basically a gas process facility, which can easily become a bomb at any time if it's not done properly. There is no tolerance here for that land to move." That thing about the bomb really frightened me. And still, I am wondering, notwithstanding the confidence and the assurances that they are giving us, whether that land is stable enough to take this project. Have you said, I don't see the comment, but have you put it there? Yes. This is the result of hard-earedness. You remember? Hard-earedness, we call it. Hard-earedness, because they were warned, but no, they wanted to push ahead to show that this. Our then Minister of Public Infrastructure, David Patterson, had warned since in 2021 that this site was improper, unsuitable. He had warned that building this project in Wales that was considered by the PPP as a no-brainer, despite not undertaking any studies whatsoever in relation to that site, soil, and everything else. He had warned that it will come back to haunt us and cost us severely. Of course, they don't want this. And at that time, when Jagdeo claimed it was a no-brainer, because he was speaking at a press conference at the Artichon Convention Center, he had estimated that the cost of the project will be between US 500 million and 800 million. This is 2021. Jagdeo's own estimate of this project was between US 500 million and 800 million. Now, serious serious mismanagement of this project is now resulting in significant time delays and cost overruns. And now it is estimated that this project is costing somewhere in the region of $2.6 billion and counting. Yes, from between 500 to 800 million US dollars, you're now having a project that will cost somewhere in the region of $2.6 billion and counting. And the government wants to continue telling you that it will cut electricity costs by 50%. In their 2020 manifesto, they said this project that would have cost 500 to 800 million will cut electricity costs by 50%. The same project whose costs have now gone up to the US $2.6 billion will still cut your electricity costs by 50%. Oh, buddy, oh. Tell me, no, this matching. Eh? It ain't matching. But guess what? Smart Alec has shifted the needle a little bit. So you're not hearing often enough 50% anymore. Every now and then some gullible person comes up with the 50. But Smart Alec has now gone to say cheaper electricity. Now, what does that cheaper mean? What does that cheaper mean? Because back then when the project was going to cost between 500 to 800 million, Jack Dio and the PPP were cock-a-hoop about the benefits, claiming that the cost of power will be reduced to between 3 and 6 US cents per kilowatt hour. Between 3 and 6 cents per kilowatt hour. What you're hearing now, as I tell you, that 50% is a mirage. Now you're hearing that electricity will be cheaper. How much cheaper? How much cheaper will electricity be? We don't know. Will it really and truly be cheaper? We don't know. But a lot of money has been sunk into this project. And to turn back at this stage is to waste billions of US dollars. So now we are into that familiar economic zone of what is called too big to fail. This project is now too big to fail. And so the government is saddled with it and has to spend whatever monies it takes to complete it. Because we can't stop it and mothball it, which is what Elson Lowe, in one of his letters to the editor, had recommended that we mothball it. We can't mothball it. Too much money has been spent. Billions of US dollars has been spent and counting. But what Elson Lowe has recommended do is quite, I will go with it, which is all this fancy talk about putting fertilizer plant and all these kinds of things in that area should be shelved indefinitely. Because we need to see how this plant will perform in terms of its structural integrity on that soil before we begin putting other heavy industries there. That's number one. Number two, this 100 million US that had been spent to stabilize that soil, is it in respect of this project alone, or is it in respect of the entire area of the Wales Authority? Because if it's only this project, then significant sums of money will continue to be spent on stabilizing soil to put these heavy industries in there. So I believe that we should concentrate finishing this project as quickly as possible, minimizing the costs, wring our ears, and learn from it going forward. This may very well be the only project of that kind that can be put within that area. Otherwise, you're going to have to be spending all of our critical oil resources on projects that have no feasibility, no profitability study, nothing. And these are heavy industry projects. So employment is very little, very, very little, very, very little. And to conclude, I reference a letter to the editor in Kaito News, October 20th, 2025. And it's headed The Cost of Concealment, A Nation Misled by one Hemdot Kumar. I read 2 or 3 paragraphs of it. He says, quote, under the supervision and direction of Vice President Barajagdio, all warnings were ignored. No feasibility studies, no geotechnical assessments, no environmental reviews, no due diligence. The decision was made unilaterally, end of quote. Another part, quote, there was a deliberate act of concealment. The administration chose to mislead the nation, circulating false narratives that delays were due to arbitration with the contractor, when in fact they were scrambling to address the soil crisis quietly, end of quote. On the last piece, quote, this scandal is not an isolated event. It is part of a troubling legacy of mismanagement, deceit, and disregard for public accountability, end of quote. I couldn't agree more with this letter writer. A number of recommendations of this. Like him, I say release all feasibility and geotechnical reports. I've been calling for this. Stabic News have been calling for this. Kaito News have been calling for this. David Patterson has been calling for this. Opposition members in Parliament, in the last Parliament, have been calling for this. There have been promises. There have been nothing forthcoming. 2, disclose the full cost breakdown, including cost overruns. We've been calling for this. All we've been doing is guessing. We don't know what is the full cost. We don't know what is the cost overruns. We don't know the stage of the arbitration. We don't know at all. We don't know anything about this. But all we've been fed is a diet of promises. 3, publish the details of the arbitration proceedings. 4, commission of inquiry into the decision-making processes. That's what he recommended. And 5, legislation enforcing transparency and public review before any future major projects begin. You know that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen, right? That's not going to happen. Just like how you're not going to get serious public sector reform, you're not going to get serious public procurement reform, and so on. You just masquerade about government efficiency and implementation. And some of the stuff I hear coming out of the ministers suggests that he doesn't have a world view. He doesn't have a world view of what government efficiency and implementation is meant to be. He feels it's tinkering something here, putting online some immigration issues and so on. He doesn't have a world view. He doesn't put out a world view there about what government efficiency, and he's not put out targets. And in terms of benchmarking, costing, and so on. What is it that we're trying to do? How much we're trying to save, and so on. You can't have government efficiency and you put in, you're taking a nice colonial building, right, and remaking it into some ministry that will not last any long time. Public utilities and aviation, and so on. Who's talking about government efficiency where that is concerned? But we ain't gonna get any legislation. Just like how we have no legislation in place about the cash, about our cash grant. But you're out there gloating about Suriname, of your thing being superior than Suriname, or your thing being superior than Suriname, and Suriname was putting in a law for their cash grant. But beyond that, to depend on the mercies of a one man, notwithstanding that we ask for this thing to be legislated. So we will know precisely through legislation whether we get in this year or not, depending on the factors that we would have put in there. So yes, we could make these recommendations, but who knows? And Nelson Lowe, I thank Nelson Lowe for this one. He says, a thorough feasibility study to repurpose the remaining land at Wales for solar power generation. I agree with that. I agree with that. Rather than trying to put another 300 megawatt down there. I totally agree with this. So we've come to the end of this session. It's 9:45, and I think we had a pretty good session this morning. Yeah, the sun is out, so probably going to enjoy the sun. So until next week, bye.
Come closer to me so I can see heaven in your eyes. Come closer to me so I can be close to paradise. Thrill me with your kisses.
You're still tuned to the Guyanese Morning Time. I remain your host, Kidaki Amsterdam. I remind you that today, Thursday, at the Museum of African Heritage, 13 Berrima Avenue, Bel Air Park, there is the inaugural Guyana Marcus Garvey Symposium. So please go down there. It starts at 5 o'clock. Go and interact with Stephen Golding, Professor Dr. Stephen Golding, the president of the UNIA-ACL. Right, so go down there. And tomorrow, the symposium continues at Tipperary Hall, Buxton. That's Friday, October 24th, 7 p.m. Tipperary Society Hall, Buxton. The Marcus Garvey Symposium continues, commemorating the anniversary of Garvey's 1937 visit to Guyana. Good. And tonight, those of you who are in the vicinity, I invite you to come on down to Club Twilight. Come on down to Club Twilight and support Miss Buxton Spice 2022, Jasmine Wiggins, as she moves on to take her shot at the Miss East Coast 2025. She's hosting a fundraising karaoke here at Club Twilight. So come on down. Come on, let's have some fun. Come on, let's carry our own key. Come on, let's support the youths as they, endeavor to achieve greatness in whichever realm they choose. Okay? So let's continue with the music. I perhaps can go until 10 with you because it's that time already, so we can continue until 10 with a few songs.
Let me
Come closer to
learn
me.
what bliss is. Kiss me once and then we'll kiss and kiss again. and life will be divine. Come closer, my dear, so I can hear music in my heart. I've waited so long to hear the song that your love will start. Darling, I'll adore you, live my life just for you. All I ask is this, please give me one more kiss and whisper you'll be mine.
Acércate más y más y más, pero mucho más, y bésame así, 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 como quieras tú, pero besa pronto, porque estoy sufriendo.
Kiss me once and then we'll kiss and kiss again, and life will be divine. Come closer, my dear, so I can hear music in my heart. I've waited so long to hear the song that your love will start. Darling, I'll adore you, live my life just for you. All I ask is this, please give me one more kiss and whisper you'll be mine.
Two men have quarreled, so two men will fight. Oh, stop them before it's too late. Lord, stop them from doing this terrible thing for the sake of two women who wait. One of us will weep tonight, one of us won't sleep tonight, one of us will walk forth tomorrow. One of us a happy life, one of us a lonely life, wearing the black dress of sorrow. Out in the street now, they reach for their guns. Please stop them before it's too late. But a bullet rings out, and the pain can be felt in the hearts of two women who wait. One of us will weep tonight, one of us won't sleep tonight, one of us will walk forth tomorrow. Out of a happy life into a lonely life, wearing the black dress